Help spread love and feel the joy of giving back. During the 2023 Subaru Share the Love event at Beardmore Subaru, Subaru will donate $250 to the charity of your choice for every new Subaru purchased or leased. The ASPCA, Make-A-Wish, Meals on Wheels, the National Park Foundation, the Housing Foundation of Sarpy County, or Offutt Air Force Base's Airman's Attic. Plus, we will give an additional $100 locally to help even more. Go to BeardmoreSubaru.com to learn more. Submit charity selection by 1/12/24. Promotion ends 1/2/24. See Subaru.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie,
and each week we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird. Halloween weirdos.
Happy Halloween, guys.
We're so excited for episode 107, special Halloween episode.
Isn't this exciting? This is, I feel like, peak History for Weirdos season.
Absolutely. I agree. This is definitely our season. The spooky season belongs to us and the weirdos.
I'm so happy to be telling this week's story, first of all.
Yes, I am too, because I get to sit back for story time.
It's always the best.
It really is. We hope that you've all had a really good fall so far, a really good spooky season, that you're doing something fun for Halloween. Probably nothing crazy because it's a Tuesday.
Right.
But at least something cozy and involving candy, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. And before we move on to this week's episode, I also want to remind folks that we only have a couple of spots left for our trip to Rome and Florence at our discounted rate. So if you want those discounted spots, please book ASAP. We leave for Rome and Florence next spring.
Yeah, April of 2024.
Yeah, we would love to have you there with us.
Guys, it's going to be exciting. I can't wait. And then also, we should give you guys an update on our books, huh?
Oh yeah, a few episodes back we shared that we were both reading historical books, and I think that's a great idea. Give an update because I just finished Killers of the Flower Moon. It was really good. It is, I'd say my only critique is that it can be slightly repetitive with the information he gives, the author, but overall it's truly like those untold stories of history that we need to learn and be told. There's so much information, so many things that I've never heard of before. I highly recommend it. And we're gonna go see the movie in theaters, right?
Yeah, very soon.
Even though it's almost like 4 hours or something.
Oh man,
it's like 3.5 hours.
I'm kind of like, part of me is like, do I? It's like it's probably a masterpiece. It's Scorsese, but do I want to sit through all of that? Do I have the attention span?
We both have ADHD. That's a really good question.
That is the question.
Do we have the attention span to sit for that long? We're going to need a lot of snacks.
We are.
And there's definitely going to need to be a few bathroom breaks.
Definitely.
But I have heard really good things so far. Definitely interested in watching it. And Andrew, tell us about the book you were reading.
So the book I'm reading is called Rome and Persia, and it details the 700 plus year history between the two empires, really. And really, it's not even fair to call them empires, like civilizations, because it spans different empires, different political structures. It's fascinating. And you can see kind of the evolution from the days of, when Julius Caesar was a child, all the way like 700 plus years later when the Sassanid Empire falls.
That's wild.
It's incredible. And these two, it's like they only really respected each other. Mm-hmm. Everyone else was kind of just like really barbarians or subjects. Mm-hmm. And it's really like because they were the only two powerful like ultra nation states, and they were just right next to each other.
They were continuously powerful.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You did have China, but that was it was even Sassanid or like the Persians didn't really have a lot of contact with them. But then the Romans had like almost none. So it's really just them fighting each other, trading with each other, having some relations, meddling in each other's affairs. The themes are kind of constant, but like it's fascinating. I can go on all day, but I'm going to stop myself because I have an episode for you guys.
Yeah, but tell us how far, because you didn't finish it. It's a really thick book.
It is. Yeah. I'm like almost 400 pages into it, and I still have like another 100 to go. So
yeah, that one, it's chunky. Like it could be used as a weapon.
Yes, it can. And I loved it because my personal favorite Roman emperor is Aurelian, which not a lot of people know about him because he only ruled for 5 years. But he had an entire chapter dedicated to Aurelian and Zenobia, who we had an episode on.
Yes, that's right. Nice plug, babe.
Yes, exactly. So if you guys haven't listened to it and are interested in that kind of Roman, Eastern Roman history, definitely give that one a listen.
Yeah, go listen to Zenobia after you listen to this week's episode.
Absolutely.
So tell me. I mean, they already know. We always hype it up. But tell us, what are you going to be regaling us with this week?
Well, since Halloween is upon us, I thought, why not do an episode on the actual holiday itself?
Yay.
I mean, why do we celebrate it? But more importantly, for me at least, where does it come from?
Right. And those are great questions.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to just dive right into its literal ancient origins and follow its evolution until the present day.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I did a lot of research and pulled together a lot of different sources to make this work. So I was pretty stoked to write this one, actually.
Also, I saw on Instagram we had done a poll earlier in the month asking people for recommendations on episodes, and a few people requested the history of Halloween.
Yes. Yeah, more I think 5 of you guys did.
Yeah.
It's just an informal Instagram poll.
Yeah.
So it was pretty amazing. But anyways, we're going to go back over 2,000 years.
Oh my.
Yes. The holiday that we celebrate has its roots in an incredibly old Celtic holiday called Samhain, which was first celebrated well over 2,000 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And, I love these Irish spellings.
Oh, yeah.
So, because it phonetically does not look anything like that. It's spelled Samhain.
That does not look like Samhain.
Yeah, exactly. It just does not follow the Latin alphabet.
No, I don't think so.
It's amazing. But anyways, this day was important to the Celtic peoples of modern day France, Britain, and Ireland specifically. This was a New Year's holiday more or less celebrated on October 31st and November 1st.
That's so interesting.
Yes. The ancient Celts picked the midpoint between the fall equinox and winter solstice, as it was the point where warm and sunny kind of became cold and dark.
That's very true. That is very true.
Yeah, and this makes sense as a point for a quote-unquote new year because their harvest was completed around this time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Agriculture was such a big part of every early civilization.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's only up in until the 20th century where agriculture was not the majority of employment for people. That's very recent phenomenon. Before that, it was a vast majority. Mm-hmm. So it's just something to keep in mind. There was also a ceremony that involved a big communal bonfire and sacrificing cattle with druid priests. So
Ooh, not for the cows.
Not for the cows. I know, it was it's kind of a vibe minus the animal sacrifice.
Yeah.
What if it was fake animal sacrifice? I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, like a symbolic sacrifice.
Yeah.
That would be cooler.
That would be way cooler, yeah. And as a part of this, the Celts would throw in the bones of the sacrificed animals into the fire, and over time, this bone fire became known as a bonfire.
Shut up. Are you serious?
Yes.
That's where we get the word bonfire?
Yes. Isn't that amazing? And there's more.
It's for burning bones.
Halloween has a lot of traditions
that we understand today, or that we practice in some way.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that just blew my mind.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh? So each person would take part of the flame from this bonfire back to their home hearths as well.
Oh, that's so cute.
So they could all have this one communal flame going on. It's almost like the Olympic flame in a way.
Yes.
Right? It's
that's really cool and symbolic because it just reminds you the importance of community for survival.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I agree. Also, fun fact, since this was such a sacred holiday, anyone committing violence during this time was faced with a punishment of death.
Yeah, that's right.
They took it seriously. But
you killed someone, we're going to kill you.
Yes. Very much so, honestly.
Yeah.
But in addition to this, it's also the beginning of some recognizable parts of our Halloween. So the Celts believed that the barrier between worlds was breachable during Samhain, and they prepared a bunch of offerings that were left outside villages and fields for fairies or shees, and that's spelled Sidhs, and that's where we get banshee from.
Of course, that's how it's spelled and pronounced.
Yes.
Why would it not be?
Why would it not be?
I also, I have to make this connection here.
Are you gonna?
The connection of that the veil between worlds is thinner is the same thing we celebrate for Dia de los Muertos.
Okay, it's insane that you say that because that is literally my next bullet point.
Shut up! Oh my gosh,
it's almost like we have some chemistry.
I think we're connected.
So, similar to Dia de los Muertos, they believed that their relatives who had passed on could wander back to the land of the living.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Which is crazy because I'm Mexican and Irish.
I know, it's like your two cultures just boom.
Yeah, very similar cultures. This does not surprise me.
And the people would also dress up as animals and other sorts of monsters so the shees could not kidnap them.
That's smart right there.
Right?
Yeah.
That's big brain thinking.
What the? That's interesting. I guess we dress up in costumes.
We do.
But
ours is a little different.
Yeah.
And I'll get into that. But the concept is very ancient.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Right? In Celtic mythology, there are even other specific monsters associated with this holiday specifically.
Tell me about them.
Oh, yeah. You had the shape-shifting pukas who would receive offerings from fields. You had the impish Dullahan, who were headless men riding horses that had fiery red eyes, and they're also carrying their heads.
That's like the Headless Horseman.
Yeah, exactly.
The
That's what I
Legend of
thought,
Sleepy
too.
Hollow.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if that comes from this.
Yeah.
Or at least inspired by. And also, if you saw one of these creatures, the Dullahan, you're dead. Like, you're just going to die.
Damn. So then... how do people know about it if the witnesses die? Where do they hear about the legend?
It's like a little bit delayed.
Oh, okay. It's enough time for you to go home and tell everyone what you saw.
Exactly.
And then you keel over.
Pretty much. And then you also had Lady Gwyn, who was also headless, by the way.
Oh my gosh, there's a theme.
Yes, and that she dressed in white and chased night wanderers with her pet black pig.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah, but if you're getting chased by a headless woman and this giant, black pig, it's probably not the cutest.
I pictured it being really small and cute. Like those New Zealand pigs that we saw at the pumpkin patch.
No, it's not going to be like that.
They're cute, small, and hairy, and they make the little...
No, they're giant, and they eat people.
The pig eats people?
No, I'm just making that up. But I'm assuming it's scary.
Can you repeat the monsters again? It's puka...
So the pukas are the shapeshifters. You had the Dullahan, who are the impish, headless men. And then you had Lady Gwyn.
Okay. Very scary.
Yes. I mean, personally, I think these were pretty creative monsters.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting because at this point, we already see the emergence of costumes. We have offerings of food and even bonfires. And all of these traditions are still, at least in some way, celebrated to this day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Pretty cool, huh?
You know what would be so epic?
What?
Is to time travel. I mean, period. That's epic.
Yes.
But to witness a traditional Samhain.
Oh my God, from 2,000 years ago?
Yes.
Yes, that would be wild.
I just feel like they're used... I don't know. This is silly and very non-historical, but I just feel like people used to believe in magic so much that you could probably experience it if you went back in time.
Yeah, I mean... your thinking isn't that far off. I mean, to them, magic was real.
Right.
This wasn't anything.
It's just the way the world worked.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
What we think of magic is just normal to them in a way. I mean, it's still magic, but it's normal.
I know. That's what I love.
Yeah.
I love the idea of it, at least.
I know. It would be kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. But that's going to change over the course of centuries, by the way, this idea of magic. Because over the 3rd to 5th centuries AD, Christianity began to spread throughout the Roman Empire and reached Britain and eventually Ireland in the 5th century.
Yeah. I had a feeling Christianity was going to come and be a party pooper.
a little bit, but it's not exactly. And we'll see. It's kind of it helped morph it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So, and a lot of the stories, like from here on out, were probably older, but they've since been Christianized. Like themes we think of a lot around the lore of Samhain were altered by Christian writers during like the early medieval period.
That makes sense. They did that with so many pagan beliefs.
Exactly. And one example is the story of the druidess Celtic, who was the daughter of a powerful druid who he traveled around the world like learning his craft. A prominent hill in Ireland that was used for bonfires for Samhain was named after her.
Oh, wow.
And the story goes that she was, sexually assaulted by the 3 sons of Simon Magus.
Whoa.
And gave birth to triplets on the hill that bears her name before dying there.
Oh my God.
And Simon Magus was a big opponent of St. Peter, by the way, in the biblical book of Acts.
I didn't know that. I'd never heard this before.
Yeah. And we think a lot of historians believe that this kind of alignment of the good pagan Celtic with the Christian saint and pope is on purpose. Like they're aligning. She's like almost like the quote unquote noble savage trope in a way.
Oh yeah. The church did that a lot.
Exactly. Like they co-opted her.
Her, right, to help get the people roped in. They're like, see, no, she was good.
Exactly.
Yeah, like she wasn't Christian, but like she would have been kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Great branding, honestly.
Yeah, they were experts at branding.
I know, like the businessman in me is like, damn, that's really good. Okay, so we're going to fast forward to the 7th century, and on May 13th, 610, possibly 609, we don't know, Pope Boniface IV consecrated the Pantheon at Rome.
Oh, yeah, we've been there.
Yeah, and this was actually a big deal for all of Halloween because that was the Pantheon right before all the gods.
It's where you worship all of the gods.
And now that day became known as, or would eventually become known as All Saints' Day, where you celebrate all the saints instead of all the gods. Interesting, huh?
I've said it before on this podcast. Catholics are just pagans for Jesus.
I mean, that's kind of what they did too. Yeah.
Yeah, it has so many pagan roots in it. It's nuts. Whereas I don't believe that one way is better or worse than another, but other sects of Christianity have criticized that about Catholicism, right? And being like, no, the whole point is that there's one God, you guys. You shouldn't be praying to all these other people. But it's the pagan roots. The pagan roots, absolutely. And like that was celebrated, that first All Saints Day was celebrated in May, right? For the consecration of the Pantheon. And it would be a little over 100 years later that Pope Gregory III would change the date of this holiday to November 1st. Interesting. Yes, and there isn't any concrete evidence to suggest that this move was made to supplant the existing Samhain holiday, but it does make you wonder. It definitely seems like it. Yes. By the year 800, we do know, though, that All Saints' Day or All Hallows Day was being celebrated throughout Ireland and Britain and France and Germany on November 1st. Okay. I mean, it makes sense that they would change the date to align with Samhain, just because people are converting or being forced to convert in a lot of cases. Right. Doesn't mean they're going to stop celebrating those things. Exactly. So you may it's kind of the idea of like, if you can't beat them, join them. That's it. And they took that to heart. Yeah. Like the Catholic Church did that over the course of a millennia. Yeah. More than a millennia. It's actually kind of incredible. They were just very consistent. Yeah. Because it takes so long really to actually fully convert a community or a population. Right. Very interesting subject. So it's important to remember that like you said, old traditions weren't necessarily thrown out, and it was more so that you could still worship these pagan traditions of season change, like you said, but now you did so through the glory of Christ. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant, honestly. It really is. Yeah. I mean, they were just doing centuries old rebranding. They're very good at rebranding. The old Catholic leaders could teach master classes. They really could, honestly. They were so ahead of their time. I know. Oh my gosh. It's kind of spooky to think about.
I agree. I mean, it's widely believed that the church was attempting to replace the Celtic Festival of the Dead with a related church-sanctioned holiday, but this isn't certain again. And, you know, they further created like another holiday called All Souls Day on November 2nd to honor the dead. And this is a church-sanctioned event that sounds very much so like Dia de los Muertos, you know, or the very old Samhain.
Yeah, I grew up celebrating both in the church. So I grew up with All Saints Day, All Souls Day for Mass, especially when I went to Catholic school. And then obviously we would still celebrate Dia de los Muertos in our own way, not in like the most traditional way because we're here in the U.S., but this is the season. This is the season for celebrating. And I don't know, something that I do kind of like about it is that this holiday in general, Halloween and the accompanying celebrations, is that it makes you less scared of death. I think it makes death more normal.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that.
Yeah.
It's actually a really good insight. I mean, and it's also around this time that the alternative for All Saints Day was really starting to become used and in vogue, which is All Hallows or All Hallowmens, or All Hallowmas, from the Middle English All Hallow Messe, meaning All Saints Day, unsurprisingly.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it comes from All Hallows. Yeah, it comes from Middle English.
Okay.
And the night before All Hallows Day, traditionally Samhain, became known as All Hallows Eve. You see where we're going with this, right?
Yes.
Yes. So sometime in the later medieval period, the act of quote-unquote souling became popular and is probably the source of what we call trick-or-treating today.
Souling?
Yeah, S-O-U-L-I-N-G.
Souling. Interesting. Tell me about souling.
So this was the act of the poor of the town or city going about knocking on doors asking for a soul cake, also known as a soul mass cake, in return for prayers. And it's just basically like a home-baked good.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Although this might be a newer form of an even more ancient practice that traces back to the purely pagan Samhain, but the details are really muddied on that.
Okay. But something about going to other people's homes for a treat, for like a sweet.
For a sweet, yeah, in order, like, in the Christian way, it was much so like you go to someone's house and say, I'll pray for you, can I have a treat?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like very heavy Christian overtones.
Which I guess would highlight how important prayer was, or like kind of to our point about magic earlier, how real the power of prayer was to people, where they're like willing to give stuff from their house to someone.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is really like a continuation of the way people believed in magic, like in ancient times, right?
Yeah. And I don't say that at all to be dismissive. Like I pray.
No, of course. It just, I think it connects us.
Yes,
it connects all of us.
I think it connects us to generations whose names we'll never know, but we're all kind of doing the same thing.
Right. And just a little bit different packaging.
Exactly.
I think that's very interesting. We're onto something there.
Yeah, we're onto something.
So regardless, like, you know, of like where souling kind of came from, it began in response to the belief in purgatory, where it was thought a soul lingered in torment unless elevated by prayer, and most often money paid to the church.
Oh no. This is where I draw the line.
Well, after the Protestant Reformation, souling continued in Britain. Only now the Protestant young and poor offered to pray for the people of the house and their loved ones instead of those in purgatory, while
That's nice.
The Catholics continued with the older tradition.
Yeah. Me and Martin Luther agreed on a lot. Let's just say that.
Thank God you live in today.
Yes, thank God. Would have been rough back then.
Yes. So we're going a little bit further. This is post-medieval now. We're kind of breaching the 17th century. So,
oh, wow.
I mean, I guess we already have with the Protestant Reformation.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So but specifically during the English colonial era of North America, these traditions weren't actually very popular. In general, they were more so in the middle and southern colonies.
Okay.
But the New England Puritans, right? They're not going to.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
They don't do any of those kinds of celebrations or pagan related beliefs.
Yes. It was not favored amongst the Puritans. Let's just say that.
That's right. We talked about the Puritans last week with the Salem witch trials.
Exactly. So it's those type of people. They're not going to be super stoked on All Hallows Eve.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
They did still celebrate something, but it wasn't anything near what we would call Halloween.
I would imagine they still celebrated something related to the harvest.
They did. There was also this guy named Guy Fawkes who back in the early I can't remember if it was the late 1500s or I think it was early 1600s. I'm pretty sure. He basically tried to blow up Parliament, and he was a Catholic.
Yes.
And it solidified like Protestant feelings against Catholics in like the UK or Great Britain, right? Or England, whatever it was back then.
Like they're crazy.
And that tradition did move along with the Puritans. Into North America. So, but it stopped around the time of the American Revolution. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting. So the Halloween really doesn't become a big mainstream holiday in what we would call the United States up until the mid-19th century, actually.
Oh my gosh.
So after the United States becomes a country.
Okay. So it takes a while.
It takes a little while, and that's because of the Irish and Scottish immigrants.
Yay.
Yeah. Kind of cool, huh?
We brought the party.
They did. They brought the party. Or we brought the party, yeah, because I'm part Scottish, yeah.
Yeah.
My Scottish ancestors came a little earlier, but...
Well, my ancestors are pretty brand new, so...
Yeah.
Brand new to here, I guess.
Yeah.
Not to the world.
No. So we also, in the 19th century, have the legend of Stingy Jack.
Oh, Jack. He can't be stingy, my man.
Yeah, he's a little stingy, and...
I feel like it's not going to go well for him.
No, I'm actually going to give you guys the cliff notes of this.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. But essentially, this tale of Stingy Jack goes a little something like this. Jack is a drunk and generally not someone you wanted to hang out with.
Oh my God.
He was a bummer.
So much shit talking already.
One night, Jack is hammered, which is pretty in character.
Jack.
And he's wandering through the countryside at night when he came upon a body on a cobblestone path. This turned out to be the devil.
Oh, snap. Of course it was. Why didn't I think of that?
And he's there to collect Jack's soul.
Oh, God. That escalated quickly for drunk Jack.
But Jack's like, hold on a second. So he's like, just hang out with me for a little bit. So he brought the devil, the Prince of Darkness, to a pub as his last act before, going straight to hell. Literally, right?
Yeah, I guess.
But Jack doesn't have any money, so he asks the devil to turn into a coin so he can pay.
Okay, he is stingy.
Yes, but unbeknownst to Satan is that Jack had a crucifix in his pocket. So Jack put the coin right next to the crucifix. Yeah, essentially trapping the devil. He was pissed.
I bet.
He's pissed, but he's like, okay, fine. Let me go and I'll give you something. And Jack's like, give me 10 more years.
Oh my goodness.
And the devil's like, fine, whatever, dude. So 10 years later, the devil comes back.
He comes to collect.
Yes, and he's like, okay, you're coming with me. And Jack's like, dude, but I'm really hungry. Can you just climb up in that tree and get me an apple? And the devil's like, what? Ugh, fine, whatever, man. So he climbs up in the tree, the devil, but Jack places a bunch of crucifixes around the tree. So he's stuck up there.
Oh my God.
Yes. The devil is furious. And he's like, fine, you're good. I will not collect your soul. Like, I wash my hands of you. I don't even want you. Yeah. He's pissed. He's like, screw you, man. I'm done with you. So Jack eventually dies. But remember, he's kind of a POS, right?
Yeah.
He gets the pearly gates, but God's like, nah, fam. Like, you ain't coming in. You're wicked.
Your name's not on the list.
Yeah, he's not on the list. Satan also denies him entry into hell.
Oh my God.
Because he's like, you know what? He's just still pissed at him. He's like, and also, I made a deal with you. I can't go back on that.
Right. The devil is known for sticking to his deals.
He does. And he cursed Jack to wander like the plane between life and death for eternity with nothing but an ember straight from hell in a hollowed out turnip.
Ooh.
Or a rutabaga.
Oh, okay. Very
specifically.
specific.
Yes. And this is the very first jack-o'-lantern.
Stingy Jack is where we get jack-o'-lanterns from?
Yes. And
that's why we carve them?
Yes, and so originally it was these turnips or rutabagas, but then eventually, and quite quickly in the mid 19th century in North America, it became pumpkins. Just because they're easier to carve and they were bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're more fun. But yeah, that's Stingy Jack.
Wow, that's wild for not the God and the devil to reject you.
Yeah.
And you have to just wander around all eternity just with your turnip.
Fun times, right?
That's a crazy story. And is that a story that would have come with the Irish and Scottish immigrants?
Yes, it was first printed in the United States in I think it was 1839, if I recall correctly. I actually don't have it in my notes, but it was vaguely around that time, right?
Okay.
But we think that it comes from the Irish-Scottish immigrants even earlier.
Okay, yeah. It's an old legend for them.
But yeah, definitely came in the mid-19th century.
Wow.
So I also mentioned that, the U.S., right, in the 19th century, we had these Scottish and Irish immigrants coming in. And they're the ones, again, like I said it earlier, and I'll say it again, they're the ones that are pushing the All Hallows Eve, now shortened to just Halloween.
Wow.
Yes. And became, they were celebrating it, and it became just much more popular.
Yeah.
During this time.
Yeah, they brought their culture with them, kind of revived this thing that was forgotten in Europe, left behind in Europe.
Exactly.
So interesting.
And especially coupled with the push of spiritualism and kind of the late 19th century, this was Halloween at this point was very centered on ghosts and mischief and even still souling.
Yeah. There was such an interesting, we've talked about this before in previous episodes, fascination with mediumship.
Right.
And being able to communicate with the other side. That doesn't surprise me that it caught on even outside of those communities.
Yeah, I agree completely. But it's a fun time now.
Yeah.
It's a good blast. Time. If you were to go back at this time and see it, you'd be like, oh, I could see our modern day Halloween coming from this. But there's still some differences.
Right.
And we'll highlight that. So we're now fast forwarding just a teeny bit into the early 20th century.
Okay.
So on Halloween 1912, in the village of Hiawatha, Kansas, local hooligans en masse ruined Elizabeth Krebs' garden, as well as most of the town.
Oh my God, not the hooligans.
The hooligans.
Definitely some youths.
And you know what? This was just a yearly occurrence, and our girl Elizabeth here, she was sick of it.
Yeah.
She was pissed.
Yeah, that's her garden.
So 2 years later, on Halloween 1914, she involved the entire town, and she brought in a band, held a costume contest, and put on a parade to stop the shenanigans. And guess what? It worked.
What?
Yeah, she made it kind of like a community sort of event.
So she created a healthier outlet?
A healthier outlet. That's exactly what she was trying to do.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Costume contest, a big band, parade. It became a big thing, and that was the very first quote unquote modern Halloween event.
In Kansas?
In Kansas, in this teeny little town Hiawatha. Yeah, Hiawatha.
Wow. If any weirdos listening are from Hiawatha, Kansas.
Or even heard of it, honestly.
Yeah, or nearby and you've heard of this, please let us know in the comments on Instagram. That's so cool.
Yeah, in fact, Elizabeth Krebs is sometimes tied or given the moniker of the mother of modern Halloween.
I love that. I love that she was upset by I'm assuming these were teenagers or kids or something.
Yes.
But didn't take a very punitive approach. She was like, how do we make this something where they can release their energy, but everyone gets involved and everyone has fun?
Exactly.
That's wild.
It was pretty cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And the success of creating a community organized event was so successful that other towns and cities in Kansas started doing the same thing before, other parts of the country even took suit.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So and during this period of time, the 1910s and early 20s, you have costume contests, parades, music, food, dancing, sweet treats, accompanied by, these frightening decorations of ghosts and goblins as they become more commonplace. Roughly, starting 100 years ago, more or less. Pretty cool, huh?
That would be really cool to see.
Yeah, so we're starting to see some newer and more modern themes come about. However, though, it was still viewed as a night of mischief and this kind of like mischievous attitude was still very popular in large swaths of the country. And it was in the 1920s specifically, it was still a very big problem throughout the US and even in Canada.
Really?
Yes. So we're not exactly sure like how and exactly when, but by 1927, the idea of trick-or-treating was firmly established.
Oh, wow.
Like, it comes from like kind of souling, but now it's like
right.
the actual idea of trick-or-treating, like literally trick or treat, comes during this time.
Okay.
In fact, like masked miscreants would not harm your property if you paid them off in sweets.
Oh my God, that's like a gang.
It's literally like organized crime, but for like sugar.
And for children.
And for children, yeah. I kind of low-key love it.
So if you don't give them like the candy, they're going to like TP your house type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe steal your mailbox.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, this practice took off like wildfire and became really common during the 1930s and only stopped a little bit in the 40s because of like the World War II sugar rations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
However, this practice obviously continues to this day.
Yes. That's so wild because obviously growing up, I would go to houses and be like, trick or treat, but I never thought of the trick part of it.
Right.
I was just so focused on like, give me some candy.
Yeah, the treat came later. The trick was first.
Wow.
Yeah, miscreants.
That's interesting because I wonder, because, you know, first you talked about Samhain and then you talked about the church and All Souls Day and things like that. I wonder why this became associated as a night of mischief.
I'm not sure.
I wonder if there's just something about the idea that like spirits are about that makes people go a little crazy.
American angst, American teenage angst during the Victorian era.
Yes, that must be it. It's just teenage angst.
But it's interesting because like in the 1950s, though, it's when we start to see Halloween become pretty indistinguishable from today's version. The process really starts here. We're not there yet, but it's starting to be here. There is still some change that happens like from here on out. So most notably with the commercialization starting in the 1970s. So up until this point, the treats that were given out during trick-or-treating weren't necessarily candy.
Oh.
Yes.
What were they?
Things like fruit, nuts, coins, and toys were just as likely to be given out.
That's so interesting.
Companies as far back as the 1950s started to sell candies specifically for trick-or-treating, namely small individually wrapped candies.
Oh, yeah. The candy companies knew what was up.
They knew what was up even back in the 50s, but it would steadily gain in popularity up until the 1970s when they started dominating the trick-or-treat market.
Dominating those trick-or-treaters.
Which it kind of sounds like silly, but right, we're talking about, I mean, nowadays, billions of dollars.
Right. No, that's huge. That's huge to completely own the market.
I think in the United States, 25% of all candy bought is specifically geared to Halloween.
Wow.
That's a huge, hugely disproportionate amount.
25% for a single day.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Pretty wild. So part of the reason for the explosion of popularity was the convenience for sure, but it was mainly due to this period's intense fear from parents of any candy for their children that wasn't professionally wrapped.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. There's all those...
all the drugs.
Yes, that everything's laced with LSD,
which turned out to be a complete and utter lie, maybe outside of incredibly isolated incidents.
But it was such a big thing of panic. I remember, I don't know if you had this as a kid, but I'd come home and my dad specifically, who's the American parent, would sit at the table, dump it all out and go like one by one, making sure everything was sealed.
Wow. I think my parents did the same thing.
Because they must have grown up being right in the 60s and 70s being told everything's full of drugs and razor blades or whatever it is.
Yeah, no. I never got any drugs.
Me neither. Imagine someone giving out drugs for free.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Most people have to pay for that.
Yeah, I was like, looking back at it, it's like no one...
People don't do that.
Yeah, no one does that. Unless you're in maybe the Upper West Side or something.
Yeah. I will say, though, you mentioned that people used to hand out other, like, toys or things
fruits,
like that.
Nuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where I would trick-or-treat in Santa Monica was the best.
Oh, the big houses, yeah.
The big mansions that we'd go to. Because some people would give out teddy bears.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, almost everyone gave out full-size candy bars. And
ironically, that's like more traditional.
Yeah. And then I remember this one house that always had ice cream. Oh. They had like an ice cream truck.
Okay. Should we go there for this Halloween?
Yeah.
Like,
just pretend that we're there with a kid.
Yeah. Oh, our kid's, he's over there around somewhere.
It's such a rascal. We'll take the teddy bear and the candy and the ice cream.
We should take your younger sister.
She's too old now. She's 15. She doesn't want to do it. Doesn't that suck?
That makes me so upset. I'm moving on with this episode. So during the 1970s, we also see costumes becoming more elaborate and mass-produced during this time. So costumes like Darth Vader, President Richard Nixon, and the Playboy Bunny all become big costumes of the era.
Those are really big themes of the 70s, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
I picked those specifically because it's like I wanted just wide array.
Yes.
And a big reason for this was mass became a lot more elaborate starting in the 60s and then throughout the 70s, obviously. And in the 70s, you had the presidential mass, right? Like the Richard Nixon, the Ronald Reagan would be later. But like, yeah, Richard Nixon, like JFK, all of those masks.
You still see Nixon masks every year.
Yeah, Nixon specifically.
Always.
He must have been president when like the first like batch was made.
Yeah, he must have been. But I've seen all of them now since like Bush, Clinton.
Right, you see them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started in the 70s. And then also superhero costumes and scary masks made a huge entrance into the scene really during like the late 70s throughout the early to mid 80s.
That's wild. That's really recent when you think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And lastly, like think of what's another big theme of Halloween, like in present day, it's movies, right? Slasher films specifically. That didn't start until 1978 with the release of the movie Halloween starring Jamie Lee Curtis. And this creates like a brand new genre, right? That's slasher film.
I saw that movie when I was a kid.
Scary.
It was terrifying. I didn't sleep for days. What are you talking about?
Well, anyways, its success inspires other movies like Friday the 13th.
I saw that one too.
That one's a good one.
Horrible.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Thank God I didn't see that. No.
And Scream.
I haven't seen that either.
Scream would come out later in the 90s, but they're all pretty integral like horror movies in today's like Halloween.
Definitely even though I haven't seen all of those movies, like I understand the references. They're such a part of like the collective consciousness of Halloween. Oh,
absolutely. It's so embedded in pop culture Halloween.
Yes.
So, I mean, we have like it's becoming obviously like it's probably more popular now than ever before in like US history, right? It just keeps on getting more and more popular. It's like so ingrained in our society that it started to spread globally, ironically, right? It didn't come from the United States, right? But now it's like our version of it is going other places.
We are big exports of pop culture.
Yes. So like, for example, the spread of the slasher film genre is a large reason that Halloween is so popular. And also, funny enough, theme parks.
Theme parks.
Yeah, so starting in the late 80s, but truly like in earnest during the 90s, the scary themed theme park really became popular, like in the United States at first. So you had Six Flags Fright Fest in 1986. Universal Studios Orlando started Halloween Horror Nights in 1991. And Not Scary Farm, although like created way back in 1973, became insanely popular during the 90s.
And those all still exist today.
And spooky season theme parks have now spread, across the world. Like just off the top of my head, I was like, I know there's ones in Singapore, Japan, France, and Hong Kong.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and probably many more.
I would not be attending any of those.
And this is really only because, Halloween, like because these theme parks were so popular is because Halloween was so popular, right?
Right.
Like it wouldn't work unless Halloween was already popular.
And it was kind of a cycle because then it helps further spread the popularity of Halloween.
Right,
having
exactly.
these theme parks.
It's funny how we've had this like positive feedback loop of Halloween throughout the world.
And the movies and the theme parks and the actual day of celebration. Yes.
Right. And I mean, right now, like trick-or-treating in costumes on Halloween is very universal.
Yeah.
Like across the entire world.
Yeah, I think even if people, maybe other cultures, other countries haven't done it themselves, they would still recognize what it is. Right. If they see people doing it. Everyone's like, oh yeah, those are kids trick-or-treating.
Exactly. And the success of Halloween has piqued interest in other celebrations of the dead, most notably Dia de los Muertos, like we already talked about.
Yeah, I actually thought about it again when you were talking about how the Irish and Scottish immigrants were still celebrating, their Hallows Eve. It made it popular here. I feel like that's been happening recently, maybe in the last 5 years with Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
I feel like more people than I've ever seen know about it, and schools do things for it, communities do things for it.
It's really interesting
Yeah.
that these very different holidays have similar themes and are celebrated almost on the same day.
Yeah.
But are truly separate. Like they
wouldn't have interacted.
Right.
Yeah.
They developed completely separately from each other.
That I've thought about that before. That really makes me think that something's going on during these days that people were just more aware of.
There's that, and also I just think that according to our ancient agriculturally centered brain, this was maybe a really good time to reflect.
Because the days are getting shorter.
Exactly.
You're entering the dark season.
Yeah.
Kind of getting more introspective.
Right.
Thinking about those who've passed.
Yeah, because guys, remember, it's only the 20th century that agriculture isn't the most popular profession, right?
Yeah.
Or industry.
Yeah.
It dips below 50% of workers, which had never happened before in the history of humanity that we know of.
Don't we have a farmers shortage?
Yeah, in the United States.
Yeah.
It's insane, isn't that?
Yeah, because I know, Danielle was telling me, I don't know if your school had this too, 'cause she was in Orange County, that they had a young farmers.
Future Farmers of America.
Future Farmers of America,
yes,
yeah.
We did not have that,
Yeah.
but I had heard of it.
I learned about it through her, and it's to encourage, young people to even consider that as a career because it's so important.
Yeah, and it's, ironically, I think it can be quite lucrative now because it was seen as quote unquote dirty work, right?
Right, because it's working with your hands, working out in the field.
To be honest, there's something kind of nice about it.
Oh yeah, that's why so many people. This is a little bit of a tangent, but we've seen such a surge, I guess, in hobby farms,
right?
Where people aren't necessarily trying to make money or create a good from it, but they have chickens and sheep and flowers, and just because it's so good for your mental health.
It is. It's really a return to
ancient times.
Yeah.
I like that.
Interesting. And you know what? In conclusion, as we wrap all of this up, I always just marvel at how over a prolonged period of time, something can morph and change so drastically, but some themes just remain set in stone.
Yes.
I mean, the dead and supernatural entities have always been at the heart of Halloween.
Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah. And that is kind of more or less the history of how we celebrate Halloween to this day.
Yay! That was awesome, my love.
Yeah, thank you. And before I forget, the sources for this week's episode come from the Library of Congress, history.com, worldhistory.org, Nat Geo, the New York Public Library, and
yay libraries.
Yeah, yay libraries, and as well as Wikipedia.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I learned so much. It is crazy to see how the essence has remained across so much time,
right,
that has gone by, and different countries, different continents, different cultures coming together, and we still have this essence of this is the time to connect with those who've passed, and also this is the time that spooky things can happen.
Yeah, I love that.
Ooh.
Spooky. Spooky crisps.
Oh, weirdos, thank you so much, as always, for listening to another episode. We really hope you enjoyed this Halloween episode. I know I did. We hope you have a very happy Halloween. And if you enjoyed this episode, actually don't forget to share it with someone else who may enjoy it. That is how we can help this podcast grow. Absolutely. You guys are so awesome in listening to us, and we really hope you enjoy your Halloween. Yeah. Happy Halloween, weirdos. Adios.
Help spread love and feel the joy of giving back. During the 2023 Subaru Share the Love event at Beardmore Subaru, Subaru will donate $250 to the charity of your choice for every new Subaru purchased or leased. The ASPCA, Make-A-Wish, Meals on Wheels, the National Park Foundation, the Housing Foundation of Sarpy County, or Offutt Air Force Base's Airman's Attic. Plus, we will give an additional $100 locally to help even more. Go to beardmoresubaru.com to learn more. Submit charity selection by 1/12/24. Promotion ends 1/2/24. See Subaru.com for more details.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Baker's, fresh for everyone.